Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So my name is Maher. Thank you for joining me today, Sophia. The AP test is, within a week. So we gotta, buckle down and get prepared. So we have a couple things real fast. We have 2 FRQs and 45 minutes to complete the test. The first one about 55% of your grade in 25 minutes, and the second 45% in 15 minutes. First one would basically give you a few terms and ask you to apply them or use a few theories in relation to those terms. And the second one will definitely have to do with research methods, maybe a little statistics, data reading, designing experiments, and so on. So the units that are on the exam: scientific foundations of psychology. That is the research methods ideas there. Biological basis of the behavior has a lot to do with the brain, um, and the nervous system and all that stuff. Sensation and perception, pretty self-explanatory. Learning as well. Cognitive psychology, logical thinking, rationalization, a lot of therapy that comes with that. Developmental psychology, mostly growth. There's a lot of stages there that you have to know. You have to know the Freud stages of development, the Piaget's. So there's quite a few ones there that you have to know. Motivation, emotion, and personality. But we do not have any clinical psychology, so no treatment or mental disorders, and no social psychology. So today, let's go ahead and do a few practice FRQs. Okay, so I believe I pulled this one from 2017. Have you seen this 2017 FRQ before?
No, I haven't.
Okay, perfect. So go ahead, read this one, and let me know when you have your first idea here. We'll go over your answer because we definitely want to get good at writing the answers now. So you can use any open notes you'd like since the test is open notes, but go ahead and think about a couple minutes and try to give me your best answer for the first one, and then we'll move forward.
Okay. Would Dr. Franklin be using, he would be doing an experiment, right?
No. Only 3 things that they give you a score for here. An experiment would not be one of them because in an experiment, there's a clear manipulation of an independent variable, and they measure how that changed on a dependent variable. And here, they're not choosing to split people up into categories and say you're going to get this condition versus this condition. So that's the only way you could get labeled an experiment. Any questions there?
No, that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, I want to try that. Try another one.
Yeah. Hold on. I guess like my other option, I guess I would say it's an observational study, just because she's like Dr. Franklin is finding like kind of like trying to find a correlation between the both variables, I guess.
Okay. You actually, in your description for observational study, hit the right answer. So Dr. Franklin, they'll give you points for one of three things, either saying it's a correlational study, a survey that they could do a correlation on later, or questionnaire. So it's not really observational because in an observational study, you're kind of sitting back, allowing the participant to carry out something in their natural setting, and then you're just taking notes on it. Like that lion in its cage ate 4 times today. So you would just sit back and take notes on what's going on. Whereas here, we actually give the survey to the participant and ask them to fill that out. So that kind of makes it no other choice but that one.
Okay.
The other studies you want to think about are longitudinal studies, where they follow a select group of people over a long period of time, and they'll say how these group of people have changed over time. So that'd be longitudinal. And then it could be a case study where you go really, really detailed into one person. Other than that, yeah, experiment we talked about, correlation survey. So those are the only kind of research methods you kind of need to bring up. Any questions with any of them, though, right now?
No. No, I
Okay.
get it.
Next one, describe the operational definitions of the two key variables that Dr. Franklin used in the study. This one is like one of their favorite questions. And since there's going to be a research one, I really expect one of these. Operational definitions. Do you know what that really means?
Is that just like defining specifically what the variables would be? Like,
Pretty good answer. I like that. Okay, so they're not asking you to define the operational definition itself, but describe. So, what are the two key variables that we have to create an operational definition for?
would it be the severity of their stress? Would that be one of them? Or no?
Severity of stress. Yes. Well, let's see. How did they? Yes, perfect. So the severity of stress is one of them.
And
And
then the number of days absent due to like illness over the 6 month period.
that would actually be the full operational definition. The variables that you're kind of dealing with are stress versus illness.
Okay, yeah.
But the operational definitions, that's where we got to go and kind of do what you're doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Severity of stress, but severity of stress rated on what?
Rated on, well, you mean like over the last 6 months? Are you asking about like the time period?
You have to mention it's the severity of the stress that they put on the survey, because they're not measuring any other level
Oh,
of stress. It's the severity of stress that they, I mean, we don't know what it was 1 through 10 or anything like that, but whatever they marked down on that questionnaire would be what we are using as the data.
got it. Yeah. Okay.
And then what exactly are we using as the data for illness?
The number of days absent.
Number of days absent. Perfect. You might, yeah, that definitely will get you all the points. Another way would just say it was measured from the attendance records,
Oh, right. Okay.
something like that. But definitely going to get you points there. So operational definitions is the exact way they're trying to define the variable And often those variables are psychological constructs or kind of broad terms like
Mhm.
stress or intelligence. It's really hard to pin that down and say, all right, here's your intelligence score. We could kind of make an IQ test or do a few things to try to operationally define it, but that's our job to try to do our best to create a good operational definition that actually does measure the variable we're trying to hit. So self-stress, I mean, okay, fine, but a lot of people, you know, maybe are not going to be as truthful as if we got their biological, stress records or something like that. So we'll see.
Mhm.
Let's go forward. Based on information provided, describe one appropriate and one inappropriate ethical feature of the study.
Well, one inappropriate ethical feature of the study could be that she only analyzed the forms returned by the first 100 athletes. Just I feel like that wouldn't be completely random assignment.
Um, that's a great idea, but they are not asking for what is wrong statistically or what is wrong with the validity of the experiment. Ethics is more, are they doing anything harmful or being
Oh.
unfair to anyone? So if that was statistical problems, yes.
Um, I don't see any inappropriate ethical features of the study.
So we want to read it back carefully. Dr. Franklin investigated the relationship between stress and illness. She persuaded a high school principal to require,
Oh,
so that doesn't sound like a great one right there.
so
That'd be,
requiring all female athletes, like making it mandatory, would be unethical.
yes.
Okay.
Um, there's a debriefing summary for the 100 athletes that they completed the study for,
Mm-hmm.
and it's wrong to only debrief some of them. So
Right.
yes, they did only take the data for 100, even though 250 did it. But even if you are going to take only 100, which has statistical problems with it, you still want to debrief everyone who took the time to be in your study. So
Yeah.
that's another inappropriate one. What about one appropriate one?
Um, she told them like why she was researching and like told them about the test. It's not like they didn't know what was going on and like where their answers were gonna go.
Perfect. They shared the statement of purpose with participants and did not keeping them in the dark about why.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Identify one statistical technique that Dr. Franklin could use to represent the relationship between the variables in the study.
She could use descriptive statistics just because like she could summarize the data from her 100 participants. Would that work or no?
They're asking exactly what are you gonna, which descriptive statistics would you want for them? Do you want
Um,
a hypothesis test or something?
oh yeah, we could, yeah, the hypothesis because she could do like, yeah, she could do a hypothesis.
We might be able to, but considering this is a correlation, the thing that you really could do best there is just calculate the correlation. And then maybe you could do a hypothesis test on the correlation coefficient, but that actually is going to be something that doesn't, is not going to be on the test this year.
Oh, okay.
But they do want you to know that you want to calculate the correlation and use it. So, what is a good correlation, by the way? A strong one.
You mean like a positive,
Well, it could be positive or negative, but strong means it's close to what value?
Um, what do you mean? Sorry, what do you mean by what value?
A strong, just to, in case they bring up correlation, a strong correlation, the best correlation you can have is R has to be between 1 and -1. And if it's 1, it means it's really strong. Or -1, it means it's really strong, but they have a negative correlation. 0 would mean they're not really related. So if it's 1, it would be really close to a line, or 0.8 even would be really close to a line. But if I had points all over the place, the correlation coefficient of this might be 0. There's not really any relation between the variables here. As for here, as one goes up, the other goes up, or we can have a -1.
Got it. That makes sense.
Okay. Describe 2 aspects of research design that weaken the validity of Dr. Franklin's conclusion that stress causes physical illness.
Well, she only tested girls, so she can't generalize the test to a whole population just because like she didn't also test men. And the first she only took the first 100 responses.
Perfect. Full points for those guys. Okay, so let's see. Go to another good one. Okay, let's do this one next. So part A, explain how each of the following plays a role in eating behavior. So drive reduction theory.
Well, drive reduction theory could explain like their biological need for someone to want to eat a lot because it could like run in the in like their genetics or like external factors that contribute to it too, I guess, that drive them to want to eat more or less.
Okay. I'd like you to take a minute, maybe really carefully try to write this one down, and maybe even type it into the chat if it might be easier for it, because I wanted to see if I could start grading your answers a little more carefully.
Okay.
So how much, and if you even need to, you could take a look. It's, remember, open notes, but give me your best answer after a minute of that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if that's enough, but that's what I can.
Perfect. So the reason why I kind of asked you to type it out is because you really, when you explained it, only gave the first half of the drive reduction theory, the drive. You weren't really explaining how you reduce that drive by performing the behavior. But that answer there, since it would take into account both of them, gets full points.
Okay.
So, okay. Now, external cues. Go ahead. Probably need a shorter sentence there, maybe, but go ahead. Think about that one. Sorry about that. Having little connection issues today.
No, it's okay. Did you receive my
Okay.
answer?
So, external cues can influence eating behaviors by having food in sight or smelling it. Perfect. Again, you probably want to mention how, just say anything how when seeing it, it makes you more likely to eat, and how it mentioned a reference to how it affects that behavior.
Oh, okay. So I should say external cues can influence eating behaviors by having food insight, which causes them to like start thinking about it more, which increases the likelihood of eating in the near future.
Perfect. That'd be better. Yes.
Wait.
And so on that same kind of idea, go for dopamine and the reward center. Okay, yeah. So when one eats, their body rewards them with several chemicals that result in good feelings, such as dopamine. The release of this neurotransmitter is interpreted as pleasure by the brain, causing the brain to find other behaviors that end up being rewarded as well. It's pretty good. I definitely kind of, instead of other behaviors, probably just say causing the brain to eat more.
Oh,
So yeah, to make it more direct, more directed to the question.
mhm.
So still close to full credit, I would say at least. Um, and then the last one for part A, observational learning. Okay. That is perfect.
Okay.
For sure. Cool. All right. Part B. So again, I'm just giving you two versions of the first type of question, that research methods one, just to
Mhm.
make sure we have it down. And then we'll go to the second part of the question next. But part B, read that. And when you're ready, operationally define the dependent variable for me.
Okay, so the dependent variable would be which, I guess which condition they were given. So if they were indicated that obesity was either a disease or the result of personal behaviors.
So, you said the condition they're given.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the thing that you manipulate. That guarantees it's the independent variable. But then I believe you did give me the correct operational definition of the independent variable.
Oh, okay.
So again, that's the one you manipulate or change, and the dependent variable you do nothing more than measure. Questions on that before we try that again?
No. So would the dependent variable be like the score that they gave?
The dependent variable, yes, they're trying to, first of all, what the idea that they're trying to measure is concern for healthy eating.
Mhm.
That's like kind of the true idea of the dependent variable. But what's the operational definition of it?
The mean score from 1 to 9.
Not the mean score, because the mean score is
Oh, no,
um
yeah, sorry. Just the score from 1 to 9,
yes,
right?
the score each participant would answer from 1 to 9.
Yeah, not the mean score. Sorry.
Yeah. Hmm. Questions there.
Yep.
Okay. What makes this study experimental rather than correlational?
Um, well, because it's experimental, not correlational, because he the study isn't trying to find the correlation between two variables, and it's because it's experimental because like he's introducing a change by like giving two conditions and then monitoring how many like the scores that people give like relative to the conditions that they were given.
That's getting there. Um, okay, yeah. So I think you thought it out by the end, but can you go ahead and try to write that in a quick sentence to get
Yeah.
the points? I think that will get you full points. I definitely like you to explain how that change was manipulated by the researchers themselves.
Okay.
So how they introduced a change and measured the dependent variables and how they're different for the groups of different levels of the independent variable.
Okay.
Pretty good, but considering this is a new test, they might be grading it harder than past years. So it's definitely good to try to be a little bit more concise. But according to last year's grades, that counts, full credit.
Okay.
Um, what is the most appropriate conclusion the researchers can draw about the relationship between the variables in the study?
Do you want me to write it or?
Yeah, if you want to talk about it first, and if you sound confident, we'll keep that answer.
Okay. I guess I could say the researchers can conclude that participants that were given the condition that indicated that obesity was a result of personal behaviors had higher concerns for healthy eating, and rather than those that believed that it was a result of a disease only.
Good.
Yeah.
Yes. So that mean is far enough, and that standard deviation is pretty small, which means that they're pretty different enough to say that yes, the introduction of understanding that obesity may be due to behavior instead of being a disease increases your concern for healthy eating.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Questions anywhere before we try another one?
No.
Okay, let's go to this one. Okay, so Dimitri and Linda are trying to learn a new routine to compete successfully in a dance competition. Give an example of how each of the following could affect their performance. Definitions without applications do not score. First one, extrinsic motivation. Just take a minute. If you need to, look up the definition. Give me your best attempt at that one.
Okay. Um, well, I guess I could say Dimitri and Linda are both trying to win the entire competition, and that could be extrinsic motivation because winning the competition would be an external reward.
Not really. It's close, but you actually have to get a reward. If they want to win the competition, if they're extrinsically motivated, that means they're motivated for the trophy or for the prize money
Yeah.
or to look good. So you would have to say they want to win something else, because intrinsic motivation could cause them to want to win the competition too.
Oh, right. So I would have to specify they want like the trophy or the award at the end.
Exactly. They want a specific reward at the end, which is why they're trying so hard to win. Yes. And an outside reward as opposed to intrinsic. Give me a couple of examples there.
What do you mean? Sorry.
Yeah. So extrinsic motivation, they try really hard to win that trophy. But
Mhm.
what if it were asking about intrinsic motivation? Why would they try so hard to win?
Oh, to feel, just to feel good about themselves and
Pretty
feel
good.
like they did a good job.
Absolutely. Just to feel, yeah, that they're competent, that they can do it. Anything along those lines, perfect. But extrinsic, and so as you see, they're both still relate to them wanting to do better, but you have to kind of diverge it from anything else that you might have learned in that same chapter. So, yeah, extrinsic for those reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Punishment, how might that affect their performance when they're trying to compete?
Um,
And you could create any example with the example ones. Just give any. It could be even a little, maybe even a little bit weird, but as long as it's well described how this affects this, you're gonna get credit.
okay. Um, I mean, the only thing that I can come up with, um, well, honestly, I don't really, because punishment, I feel like, yeah, I don't really know what to say for punishment,
Well,
honestly.
let's see. A few ideas come to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Punishment that can be helpful and or even hurtful in affecting their performance. But let's say if they're even 1 minute late, they got to practice an extra half hour. Or anytime they make a mistake on their moves, they got to do push-ups or something like that.
Mhm.
So any kind of idea where you could inflict some sort of punishment for wrongdoing that might basically make them more likely to do the opposite in the future. So they'll be on time next time. They'll do the move better. They'll be more focused or whatever it might be. So
Oh,
anything at all along with how you can use punishment to um, basically prevent them from doing the bad behaviors again. That will lead them to not winning the competition.
got it. That makes sense.
Okay. Proactive interference. So for sure, look this one up. The interferences are tricky words. But then after you do that, give me your best attempt.
Well, I know proact interference is when old information like gets in the way of like knowing new information, learning new information.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess like since they're dancers and they've had to memorize many types of dances and many choreographies in the past, I guess those dances could get in the way of them learning their new dance for the competition.
Okay, sorry about that. I was hearing you till the end.
No, it's okay. Um, I just, I mean, yeah, Dimitri and Linda. So if they had to memorize old dances and old choreographies, that could get in the way of them memorizing their dance for the new competition that they want to win.
That's a perfect answer. Absolutely. Yes. Okay. Let me go back to screen share. Okay, so that's full credit. Endorphins. Definitely seems like more of a stretch, but go ahead, try to relate those concepts. Can you still hear me, by the way? Sorry.
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
Um, what I could say is since endorphins are released during, well, what they're exercising, so since they're already releasing endorphins, um, let's just say like Dimitri falls and like hurts his foot, I feel like the endorphins would work together to prevent that pain, even if it's just for short term, so he can continue dancing.
That's perfect credit. Absolutely. Yeah, well done there. The vestibular system.
Um, well, the vestibular system controls like posture and balance, I think. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, it would just assist Dimitri and Linda in knowing their position around the stage and helping them keep their balance so they can successfully do their routine.
Yeah, that works perfectly.
Okay. Would that also apply to knowing like their position, or is it just balance like mainly?
It's mostly balance, but the position of the head also is part of the vestibular system, as long as you don't say position of the limbs.
Oh, okay.
That'd be, kinesthesis.
Right.
So since you didn't say that, full credit. But yeah, if you did say that, they're going to try to take your points away. So I'm glad you asked that. Make sure you only attack the answer they're asking about.
Right.
Okay. Divergent thinking. So it might be a little bit harder.
Um, I guess if, let's just say, like, I mean, this could be a bit of a stretch, and I don't really know if it's responding to the question, but if Dimitri forgets like a step or like messes up, um, what's her, Linda could use divergent thinking to like create a new idea, or like, yeah, she could create a new idea of how to, for a solution to continue the dance and keep it kind of like, keep it going so that they don't completely fail their routine.
Okay. At first, I was having a little trouble, but when you said the word create, perfect. So once they had to be a little bit creative and use maybe some sort of improvisation, that's showing divergent thinking right there.
Yeah.
So great. That one would definitely get credit. And then the last one, introversion, a personality trait. So still going to hit probably one of the last things you need to cover.
Mm-hmm.
But how might that affect their performance?
Well, I mean, introversion means that you can be shy, so I guess it could affect their performance in a negative way because they could get stage fright or just be shy on stage and not completely do their routine like as they would if they were alone together and be completely confident.
That's perfect. Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. All right, and let's go to this one. No social facilitation. Okay, so Sakio traveled to a prestigious college to audition for a music scholarship. After he arrived, he learned that his audition had been rescheduled for late in the day. He was required to play several difficult pieces on his saxophone and interview with the judges. Just before leaving campus, he was offered a full scholarship to the college. Explain how each of the following might have contributed to the success of his visit. Okay, the resistance phase of general adaptation syndrome. Take a minute there. So what were the three stages again?
Of the resistance phase,
Mm-hmm.
that would be the alarm stage and then the resistance stage. And what's the third one? And then the exhaustion stage.
Perfect.
So
So how did the resistance, being in the resistance phase, contribute to the success?
I feel like it would contribute to him maybe being in denial, like resisting the fact that he got the scholarship, maybe.
No, because he got it at the end. So the resistance, what happens in the resistance phase?
Um, the body like tries to either resist or adapt to the stressor.
Yeah, basically, tries to deal with the stressor. So it heightens up all your senses and gets ready to help you deal with the thing that's stressing you out. So during his interview and perhaps during his performances, um, his body was in the resistance phase where it was heightened and it had a very strong capability to perform its functions, as opposed to maybe if it were in the exhaustion phase, he'd be so tired and stressed out and overstressed that his performance would eventually drop. But in the resistance phase, his performance was at its peak because it was given a little bit of a stress and his body was able to deal with it because it was still only in the resistance phase and didn't work itself out yet.
Got it.
Okay.
So you would, in the resistance stage, you can still remain alert even if you've like left the alarm stage, right?
Yes. The alarm stage is usually a few seconds. Resistance can last a whole match. Like it could be a whole game that you could be in that resistance phase. Perhaps a whole day if it's like a battle or something like that. But after a certain amount of time, and it's different for everyone, they will get exhausted and can't carry on anymore at all. And that stress will be too much for them.
Got it.
Okay. Implicit memory. How might that have contributed to his success?
Well, implicit memory is like unconscious memory, so you don't need to think about it to try and recall it.
Mhm.
So, using his past experiences of playing the saxophone, I feel like he would just play the notes. Like he wouldn't need to sit there and think of the notes that he has to play.
Perfect. That gets full credit. So we're skipping social facilitation. Go ahead, talk about the basilar membrane, please, and how that contributed.
Well, I mean, the basilar membrane, it's like in the ear. So the only way I can really think of connecting that to this would be him hearing like what he's playing and making sure it sounds good and listening to their questions and like
Wonderful.
review questions. Yeah.
That's perfect. Yeah, sometimes it's like a little, it sounds a little dumb, like it allows him to hear.
Yeah.
But yes, that's exactly what they wanted there.
Okay.
Somatosensory cortex.
The somatosensory cortex processes like how we move and what we touch and like kind of just all the sensations for the body, I feel like. So it would allow for Sachio to make sure that he's playing the right notes and making sure that his fingers are on the right part of the saxophone, so he's like actually efficiently playing and making sure his music sounds good.
Wonderful. Yes. Okay. A couple more. Intrinsic motivation.
What we talked about that before is like he would want to do well just because like he wants to perform well and feel good about himself, and he just likes to play the saxophone. And I feel like that would help his performance because he would be motivating himself, not just for wanting to get into the university.
Perfect. Okay. And then what about extroversion?
Um, if like Sachio was an extrovert, then he would probably have like a better impression on the judges because he would be more friendly and just like more confident in his whole character and his whole personality and the way he plays. And I feel like when he would make, yeah, just like his first impression with the judges, he would be able to answer their questions confidently. And yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. So those are all really good. Um, Now, so let's go make sure we tacked them. Remember, concept application to apply theories. So that's kind of what we did the last two problems, where here's a scenario, what might help them, what might hurt them, how might this vocabulary term affect it. So definitely very similar to the FRQs of the past. They only really had two FRQs for psych. So it's one of the tests that doesn't seem to have been changed very much from previous years. Um, so, and then they kind of do fit with the same ideas. The other one for sure, research methods, they're going to ask what type of research are they doing? What type of variables do you have? Operationally define them. What conclusions can we state? Maybe a little bit of mixing of maybe a question where you apply your theory there or so. But other than that, did you have any questions on anything we covered today, the types, anything that might be on the exam at all, or any questions in general?
No, no.
Awesome. Well, thank you, thank you very much for joining today, and I wish you the best of luck on your test. I know it's pretty close,
Mm-hmm.
but I'd say the best thing you can do is continue to practice a bunch of FRQs and probably try to type them out and then grade yourself after. So it's not good enough to just, do you understand the idea? Like, what are you going to write on paper as your grade? So I'd say practice that a lot in the next week. And if you did want any help with me, I am available at pretty much, throughout the next week or so. So you can message me at any time. But other than that, thanks again. And hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
No problem. Bye bye.